Hey everyone, welcome to the latest Fin product announcement. I'm Paul. Here with me is Lewis from our solutions team, and I've got Chris and C from our product team. These are the people who've built the product, and Lewis makes sure that our customers are successful using it in the market. So today is all about making Fin even better for resolving complex customer queries. We have big improvements to our procedures and our simulations features, and we're going to show you it all in a couple of minutes. So let's first of all take a little step back and set the scene. In the last few years, we've seen rapid investment and rapid progress in using AI to deliver better customer service. And it's hard to find a customer service leader today who isn't using AI or transforming their org, changing what their teams are doing, trying to get better customer service delivered. It's fundamentally changed how businesses work. And so at Intercom, we have a belief that this rapid progress with AI and powered by AI is going to make something possible that wasn't possible before. And that is to deliver perfect customer experiences for every single customer, every single time. And that's our vision. We're building a product to help you deliver that perfect customer experience every single time. And so we see oftentimes that teams hit a ceiling in scaling AI and developing AI products for customer service. And so what we see is that the integrations they have with their products just aren't deep enough, which means Fin can't take actions and Fin can't be tested at the scale it needs to be and so on. So that's what today is all about, trying to work out how we help customers more deeply integrate Fin into what they do, into their business, multiple customer channels, multiple workflows inside the company, different teams, a lot of kind of moving across these different things. And so with Fin and with procedures and simulations, we've now got a product that's very capable of doing all these things by itself. So we're very happy with what we've got to. We've gotten over 7,000 customers happily using Fin. We've got great customer quotes and testimonials. One is from Claudia at Raylo, who's been using procedures in the latest updates we've got to that and simulations, saying Fin can now handle payment-related queries, very complicated things that were never possible before. And they've CSAT sitting at an incredible 94% using Fin and procedures. So a genuine step change for Raylo. And we believe that if you want to deliver really high-performing AI products, you need this system of continuous improvement. And so we've built Fin to do that. We have a thing we call the Fin flywheel. It's not just a framework, it's actually how we've architected the product too. So if you go into Fin, the product, you'll see you can train Fin, you can test Fin, you then deploy those changes, and you analyze the results. And this is a loop. You train, test, deploy, analyze. And the more you use Fin, the more experimentation you do, the better Fin gets. So that's what today is about. Everything you're going to see is real, is ready to use now. You can try it all straight afterwards. And I've got Chris here, who's been developing the product, knows a lot more about the details than me. But we have had interesting design decisions to make with procedures. And in particular, there's a scale you kind of wanted to talk about. So tell me where we ended up and what happened there.
Thanks, Paul. So at one end, you've got the very generic AI agent builders, which are, they promise that you can build a customer support agent and they're very quick and easy to set up, but they lack a lot of the control and reliability and depth that you really need to be able to deliver a perfect customer experience across all queries. So that's at one end of the spectrum. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got these very bespoke AI customer support tools where, they are able to handle all of that complexity. They're doing a lot more of the frontier AI things. But the problem is it all goes through a forward deployed engineer. You can't set it up, you can't manage it yourself. Every time you want to make a change, you've got to kind of get in touch, get one of our engineers to make an update to your workflow for you. And you can imagine you were talking about that that flywheel, just how much that slows that ability down to be able to kind of train and then understand what to improve and make those improvements. And so when we've been thinking about procedures, we've been really thinking about how do we bring the best of both of these worlds together? How do we make something that is straightforward enough that it doesn't require you to be an engineer or a prompt engineer to be able to get great results, but at the same time it brings all of the power of the frontier of what is possible with AI today, all of the reliability, depth of customer experience that you previously could only get with those more bespoke solutions.
And we're doing this, it's like, this isn't easy. Like we're giving ourselves more work by doing it this way, but we think it's really critical that customer support teams are in control of this, that it's self-manageable, and it's not gatekept to only those people who can write code or who have deep AI experience.
And there's kind of two key things that we've really focused on as we've iterated on procedures since. And the first is, we really want this to be self-servable. We want to take a lot of the complexity out. But you've got to balance that with getting like a really reliable, experience and making sure that these things actually work in the real world. So we've put a lot of work into how you build procedures. You're going to see a lot more of that in a minute, to really be able to get the power of AI, but also the reliability and accuracy control, especially as you start to integrate with your own systems, your own data, taking actions, beyond just the kind of typical back and forth conversations. So that's one key bit. And the other key bit that we've learned about is really around the need for testing and getting confidence to be able to set these live at scale. These are, as you said, they're handling like really complex work. And, you want to build that confidence. And so we've learned that we've really had to invest in the testing experience to ensure that customers can get that confidence to set them live, that these work for all the different edge cases, and that you can actually put them out in the real world and they're going to deliver what you want.
So that's really cool, Chris. I'm excited about the product. You and I have talked about it. We should actually look at it. We've got some great demos here. See, you're going to walk us through some stuff. So over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I'd love to walk you through the subscription downgrade use case. That use case is pretty simple on the surface, but actually beneath that, there's a decent amount of complexity. That's because it's really interacting with your billing systems. You have to understand the user, and you also have to actually execute on that downgrade itself. So yeah, let's jump into the product and I'll show you a bit more. So I'm here on the procedures overview page, and I'm going to click on the top right to create a new procedure. So I could just create this from scratch, but I'm going to use AI to draft this procedure. This is because from working with a lot of customers, there's actually just a lot of work spent in fleshing out your process and writing these instructions. So we really wanted to invest in this to make this really easy and give you that quick start. So here I'm just going to put in a quick summary of my process, and I'm just going to click continue here. And what Fin is going to do is actually going to search my workspace for a bunch of different information that already exists. So my past customer conversations, my existing documentation. It's also going to look at the integrations that I already have set up. And it's going to pull all this information together to really enhance my prompt. And it goes even further than that. So we get some clarifying questions here as well, just to really help flesh out the procedure and make sure that I have a really good first draft. So I'm just going to click generate draft here. Because it's pulling from a few different sources, this might take a minute or so. So I'll just move to another tab here where I have had something pre-generated. So this is the procedure itself that's handling the subscription downgrade. So a procedure is really made out of two parts. The first part is the trigger, which is when you can use this procedure. It's telling Fin when to trigger this. And then all the bits underneath are the instructions. So Fin, what Fin should do when it's using this procedure. So from the get-go, you can see that this just looks a lot like a document. And a lot of this is written in natural language. So you see here, for example, we tell Fin to fetch the user's current subscription information, and then we do a few checks to check if the subscription is active or not, and stuff like that. So this is really great because that just means that it's really easy to read and write and maintain, just like you would a document for your other teammates.
Can you talk a bit more about like how procedures enables you to kind of integrate and interact with data and tools outside of Intercom?
Yeah, exactly. So on top of just the natural language instructions, Fin also has some access to some really powerful tools. And one of those is a data connector. So data connectors are a feature that allow Fin to interact with external systems. So either third-party systems or your own internal systems. So let's just look at the use case I have here. As you mentioned, we are fetching the user subscription. So I'm just going to click into this. And you can see on the right that there's an overview of the kind of information I get back from that data connector. And this is all the data that Fin actually has access to in this procedure. So Fin is able to read that information and use it to make decisions like further down the line. And what's really powerful about data connectors is not only that it can read this information, but it can actually use it to take action. So I'm just going to scroll down and you can see here that we actually called another data connector to do the downgrade itself. So that's really powerful because Fin doesn't just read the information, but also does the downgrade itself, which means that Fin is able to handle this fully end to end, which is really exciting.
One thing though is like, obviously, when you're interacting with these third-party systems, like especially in like, canceling or downgrading a plan, like some of these feel quite high risk, and you want to make sure that Fin only does these things when it's meant to. You want to have that confidence. So how do we help customers structure these procedures in a way that makes Fin reliable?
Yeah, we have lots of different features that allow you to get that precision and reliability, but really one of them is the one I'm going to show you now, which is conditions. So conditions allow you to tell Fin basically exactly what to do under different scenarios. So of course you can write this in natural language, but what I want to really highlight here is that you can actually get a lot more precision and reliability by writing these in code. So there are cases where you want to manage certain critical actions, and that's really important to have. So in this case, for example, we always want to check against the renewal amount so that we can make sure to loop in the customer retention team. So that means you get a lot of fluidity, but at the same time, the control and accuracy at the points where you really need it.
One thing I can see inside of that condition is you have Fin kind of collaborating with a customer retention team, which, obviously collaborating with human teams is really critical in some of these complex procedures. Can you talk a bit more about how Fin does that within these procedures?
Yeah, so we've built procedures to have Fin be really collaborative. So you're able to loop in any kind of team or teammate at a certain point if you want. And Fin's also a really good teammate. So it can also leave a note on a conversation so that handoff is really seamless. I'm just going to navigate to another tab to show you what that note looks like in the conversation. So here you can see that Fin is able to leave a note as part of this procedure.
Yeah, and what you're showing here, right, is the Intercom inbox. So this is where both Fin and your human teammates are both collaborating together to be able to answer and resolve customer queries. But if you were using Fin with another tool like Salesforce or Zendesk as well, you get this same kind of human collaboration capabilities. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
We've talked a lot about building the procedure, how you can write natural language, integrate with third-party tools and collaborate with humans. But as we know from working with a lot of customers, there's a big gap from building a procedure to setting it live and having confidence that it works. So could you talk a bit more about some things that we built that enable customers to have that confidence to actually use these in the real world?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Procedures is the cutting edge AI automation product. And to do this, we really needed to make sure that we could give people that confidence at scale. So that's why we have simulations, which I'm just going to navigate to in the test tab and click simulations here. Simulations is basically what allows you to run these automated AI tests to check that Fin behaves as intended for each different scenario. So you can see here on the right that basically I have these 3 different tests and they cover different scenarios and allows me to check how Fin will act in each of these cases. So I'm just going to click into one, which is the happy path, which is where the customer is actually eligible for the subscription. So let me just click into this here and just show you a little bit more about that. So here you can see I'm able to set up what the customer's opening message is and any additional details they might have to help guide what that simulation or simulated conversation would look like. If I scroll down, I'm also able to set some success criteria, which basically is telling Fin what good looks like or is explaining what good would look like in this case. So not only are you able to set what data connectors would be triggered, but you're also able to set things like what Fin would say. So for example, in this case, I really want to make sure that Fin tells the user when exactly the downgrade would happen. So I'm just going to click run, and we can see what this simulated conversation is going to look like. So here we have the simulated conversation running for this particular scenario, which is the happy path. Just starting at the top, you can see that the simulated customer uses information that I've set up in that test. And it's starting with the opening message, for example, and then going through that whole conversation. One thing I want to point out here is that we have some really great events that we show you here that give you a lot of transparency and observability so that you can really understand what's happening in the procedure. So for example, you're even able to see some of Fin's thoughts and how it's reasoning through the procedure as well. So now that this kind of simulated conversation has completed, you're able to also see the evaluation and how Fin did against the success criteria that you defined earlier. So this is really great because if your conversation is really long and complex, you can see at a glance straight away how Fin did basically on this particular scenario.
So, we've built the procedure, we've tested it. I'd love just to take a few minutes just to like, what does the end user experience look like, actually interacting with one of these procedures as an end user?
Yeah, I'd love to show you that. So I'm going to navigate to another tab where I have Fin over the messenger. And I'm just going to show you a little bit what this looks like. So I'm acting as the end user and saying that I want to cancel my plan. What is happening behind the scenes here is that Fin is looking at my message and matching to the right procedure based on my intent and what I've written in that trigger earlier. And you can see here, based on the procedure that I wrote before, it's proceeding throughout this procedure as I've written the instructions. So for example, it's first calling and using that data connector to pull information from this external system to understand my subscriptions. And then it's checking against the conditions that I've written to check if I'm eligible for this cancellation or not. So you can see here it provides me information about when I'm going to get that downgrade, what my current plan is, and yeah, it's following that really well.
Now, obviously this looks great, but like this is that happy path, right? And we know that a lot of support conversations aren't this linear. Customers like jump in, they ask questions that you didn't expect. How does Fin react to that within a procedure?
Yeah, sure, I can show you. So as an example here, Fin has actually told me that I'm going to lose access to some features when I downgrade. So it's quite a normal thing for me as an end user to ask, like, okay, what exactly am I losing access to so I can decide whether I want to cancel or not. So I'm just going to ask Fin this right now. And what we'll see here is that Fin is going to basically pause the procedure and look at some of the information in my help center. So it's going to answer this question. And it does that really well here, telling me what I'm going to lose. But it also actually nudges me back into that process as well, which is really nice and actually makes this whole conversation very natural.
Yeah, and I think what's critical to point out here is, right, like in the procedure, we didn't add any handling for if a customer asked this question, right? Like we kind of wrote out the procedure of how to proceed with it, but like Fin is agentically figuring out how to adapt the conversation, how to react to the customer. And what that gives is like a real, like natural, human-like conversational experience that feels really natural, but like still gets to those results. Thank you for showing that, C. Like, Lewis, I want to kind of jump to you. You've been working with a lot of customers, helping them set these procedures live, helping them iterate and improve on them. What are some things that you've learned working with customers so far?
Yeah, I think, Chris, the standout thing for me is the pace at which teams can get to that self-management state. So customers typically come with us with one particular use case, one problem. We'll look to test, validate in production, and then we can expand to further use case once we have that confidence built up that you'd mentioned. So really, really critical. And not only that, we see those specific teams who we work with initially, they fully own, they fully iterate, and then they can expand by themselves without necessary input from us or even from their engineering team.
Yeah. And what are some of the use cases that you've been seeing customers use procedures for and getting to success with?
So we're seeing a wide range of multi-step procedures. Now, what we do see working particularly well is the more complex scenarios. So complex can be multiple edge cases, multiple end user states. Some examples of these that we're seeing in the wild today can include refunds, can include where's my deposit, even more in the more sensitive areas such as, let's say, data deletion. All of these is what Fin and procedures are handling today, which in the past would have been solely reliant on your team to be able to handle.
Now, you've got a really good example of a customer who's been using procedures for a while now and seeing some really good success with it. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So what really comes to mind is Money Group. So Money Group are a tech-led savings platform, really, really highly regulated space. And what we did very early on in the engagement is we partnered with them. We sat down with them, we mapped out what this complex use case was to see how their team would be able to handle it. And this wasn't us as an Intercom building it for them. We partnered with them and we did a lot of knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing. So big kind of shout out to Lee from Money Group. He was really, really great to work with. And within that example, I actually have a scenario that they were built out of a procedure just to show what that level of complexity looks like. And from Money's perspective, what they were able to build out was a procedure to allow their users claim back on missing purchases. So again, a lot of complexity here, but from Money's perspective, some of the key areas were data eligibility, again, the policies that they use day in, day out, and then the procedure calling different systems. So multiple calls, multiple systems, and this is what the humans would have had to do in the past.
And were there any like standout features from procedures that really help Money Group deliver that like great customer experience to their end users?
For sure, the one major area that was drastically improved from a customer experience perspective was the fact that within procedures, end users can now upload images. Previously, all customers would have to provide particular dates and information one by one. Fin is now able to ingest that information within a procedure and then get all the information it needs to move to the next step.
And you mentioned that Money have, they've built a number of these now. Like what kind of results are they seeing from that?
So since our first engagements, Money now have over a dozen or dozens procedures live in the wild, many which they built by themselves. And at this stage, they now have a huge 10% increase in the resolution rate across all other inbound queries.
Amazing. Thanks, Lewis.
Yeah, we've had a great update today, but we've obviously got lots more product improvements to come. I talked about the Fin flywheel earlier, and today we went deep on one part of that, which is the idea of training and testing. And I hope you were excited about the demos that we showed. Again, it's the real product really working. We've hundreds of customers using procedures and getting great results from it. But we're also busy building other improvements to other parts of the flywheel. So for example, next month, we'll be back with an update on our Insights product, which is what helps the team analyze and work out what's working. And you can run procedures, you can run simulations, and a simulation will tell you a lot, but you got to just set it live at some point and learn kind of from the real world and from your customers directly. So lots of improvements with Insights that are coming. We're excited for that. And after that, we're going to have more product updates. And this is more around our vision for a single customer agent. So we're busy building Fin for customer service, and some of the stuff you saw today was a big part of that. But we've got more improvements coming for Fin working across the customer journey, working across sales, success, service, all together. Our vision is that businesses will have one single customer agent for all their customer communication. So we're excited about that. We're designing these things, like you can see, so you're always in control. You can partner us and we can go deep together, but you need to be able to do this stuff yourself too and make experiments every single day, learn and try again, learn, try again. That's how you get these amazing experiences and these great numbers. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks to everyone on the team here for some great demos, and you can learn everything on fin.ai. So go and check that out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.